Hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sonic the Hedgehog here and I'm back for some more yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom for the PlayStation 2, Nintendo GameCube, and of course the Xbox versions as well. So, last time we have managed to able to 100% for everything in terms of Mermaid Lair, and also we did manage to done some other tasks in journey forms of well, to be more specifically, journey forms of, well, I don't know how do I expect for able to mentioning about this specific stuff, mind you. But either way though, regardless of such though, we have managed to at least manage to 100% everything in Mermaid Lair. So today for this episode is the fact that we are about to be moving on to the next world in this game, which appears to be Sand Mountain, which I don't know what the first appearance of that location is for though, but I'll point it out until later.
Sand Mountain, where sea creatures go to enjoy an afternoon of falling down.
Squidward, am I glad you're here. I need to borrow your toothbrush again.
What? You've used it before?
Oh yeah, lots of times. I figured if you didn't know, you wouldn't mind.
Fine. What do I care? I'm a wreck anyways. I try and get some exercise to relax from all this robot mess, and now everything is ruined.
Because of a toothbrush?
No, it's those blasted robots! They've taken over the ski slopes! How can I ski with those ugly things beating everyone up? Listen, SpongeBob, you've gotta help me! I'm gonna lose my marbles if I don't get some relaxation!
I've found if you keep your marbles in a bag, they don't get lost as often. In fact, I've got mine right here. It's embroidered with this lovely...
Forget the marbles! I've got a better idea. If you get rid of the robots at the bottom of every slope for me, I'll give you one of those golden spatulas.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to beat the extreme fun of marbles.
Okay, I'll give you one for each slope you clear.
Now that's a deal!
Alright, so let's begin with, of course, the forms of Sand Mountain, as you can see right there. And once again, we need to able to go through, what else? Some more missions here and there. And to top it all off, that let's take down that particular snowman right here. So that way we can able to get ourselves the first Patrick sock. And because of that though, as you can see, that this almost inspires by the forms of the snowy mountain peaks in a reality world. Except the fact that this takes place in under the ocean, so they naturally just managed to call it Sand Mountain, trying to able to representing with the snowy mountains for reality world, as you probably expected by this point. So, yeah, there's not much else we can do, apart from the fact that this is the only world that's, oh, you son of a biscuit. Anyway, this is where we need to able to grind even more shiny objects, because as you can see, between these three sections, as you can see right there, we still need to able to actually use some of those shiny objects in order to able to entering one of those sections. Like, for instance, for example, if we paid for about 1,500 of those shiny objects, this way you're able to actually access to one of those little slide sections, as you can see, such as, for instance, Grubby Moving. So, yeah, that's what it's shown on here for the entire map like this. So, and there's the finishing line just about over there towards the distance over there.
I've gone down this hill 100 times, usually rolling. Darn kids think it's funny to push me, but if you can beat my time down the hill, I'll give you a golden spatula.
Well, yes, Mrs. Puff, I will able to accept the challenge, and as you can tell, in journey forms have been some slide segments, as you can see, meaning about the fact that we need to do a lot of slide segments, by the way, for the sake of the whole entire world. That's only because I think this is also the same applies to you only select SpongeBob in these challenges. What do I mean by that? Well, as soon as you start this thing up, well, the timer will start to count down. And basically, in the majority of those spatula missions, well, for a few exceptions, mind you, that some of them are pretty easy to able to actually just complete the slides as normal, but then in other ones, you have to able to actually complete these kinds of slide segments for a certain amount of time. Now, as you can see, I accidentally just fall off right here. But that's fine by me, because I'm actually onto the starting point all over again. But if you somehow fail the challenge, well, you can able to talk to one of those NPCs once again, so that way you can able to try this again. So even then though, yeah, this is gonna be something. So even then though, and aside from all that stuff though, I noticed there's Patrick's sock around here, but I seemed able to accidentally ignore that. But hopefully our mods are able to grab those after we're done with somewhat almost in the majority of the entire world like this or something. So but either way though, yeah, you really can't afford able to mess things up for those little timer challenges and all that stuff. Even especially noticeable if you grab the checkpoints by accident, and then if you somehow fail the time challenges or anything like that, chances are you might as well able to be best to able to actually just well, as soon as you can see on screen, that despite I accidentally just touched the midway point, or the checkpoint I should say, this meaning about the fact that while the time challenge will be no longer acceptable, as long as you would be able to actually press this start button and then just reselect the exact same mission, and then basically you can able to try that particular mission again. So, but either way though, it will be pretty good, especially noticeable how the fact that if you keep on failing a lot, like I just did right there, but then, as I said before, that luckily you can able to retry those particular challenges like these ones right here. So that way you can get yourselves another chance, or in this case, for a much more better attempt, then you would able to actually accomplish that with so much so. So even then though, in this case, in this first section in Sand Mountain, we need to beat for about 1 minute and 21 seconds to beat. So but then again, if you beat it for a certain amount of time, then, well, not only does it give you an opportunity to able to actually just to deal with the next mission, by the way, which appears to be dealing with even more robots as far as for that disposal, but also that we might able to get ourselves another golden spatula. Well, assuming if we're able to actually, although I'll explain more about this whenever we continue progressioning for the sake of this particular first section of this world. So, but either way though, as we've noticing from the start, that there are about 3 sections in total for the sake of the forms of this world. Some slight segments can be pretty easy as such, but most of the time, I found myself just keep on like getting a lot of trial and error sometimes. Even as you saw me, did a lot of trial and errors in journey forms of this particular stage itself. But anyways, as soon as you're able to make your way for a certain amount of time, as you can see on this notification, as you can see here, that way you must return back into, well, you must return back to Mrs. Puff, and that way you should be able to actually get yourselves the, what else, another golden spatula in the process. So, once again, we're going back to 2020 and mounted those shiny objects, as you can see on screen, even though we no longer have those, because we now keep on increasing those particular shiny objects. And again, in order to able to 100% through everything in this world, best be sure you need to able to grab the most insane amount of those shiny objects as possible before you're able to actually continue things on during forms of the entire world like this. So as a result, keep doing that because otherwise you won't be able to actually just well, fully access to other areas in journey forms of Sand Mountain itself. So, since today is of course the Friday, the 19th of June today, in this case in 2020, so in this case we've already got about 4 more days to go until the remake of this game will eventually get its release, and I'm still super excited able to actually just to try out a remake of the game, and I'll give my other impressions of that particular remake until at some point whenever we get on to the next few worlds or something. So even then though, yeah, that's pretty much about it.
Congratulations! You passed with flying colors!
So again, in order to able to get those time-based, golden spatula challenges, you must be sure you need to return back to the NPCs as you can see right there. And that way, you would be able to get yourselves another golden spatula. So, I'm pretty sure we're actually done in here for the most part, apart from the fact that while I'm missing quite a few items, specifically, some more remaining Patrick socks as you can tell. But then again though, we'll be back for those whenever we're done with most of the game. So even then, I promise you guys we'll get to that. But either way though, that pretty much usually just all sorted when it comes to section 1. And before we do anything else for this resides, let me just go ahead and just quickly get some more shiny objects. And we still need to spend 1,500 shiny objects as you can see. So that way we can able to actually access to the second section in the forms of Sand Mountain. And I think it'll able to actually give us another time challenge, but except this time with a different NPCs. And this time we got ourselves Flunder Hill. That seems a little bit more fun enough as it is.
I fly like the wind and float like a sea bee. If you can beat my time down the hill, I'll give you a golden spatula.
So in this case, in this next time challenge by the Bubble Buddies time challenge, we need to beat for about 2 minutes and 1 second. So, but either way though, assuming if you're able to actually switch over to a different character, right, like as you can see on screen, that like usually for the sake of this world, usually SpongeBob and Sandy are the only playable characters in this world. So even then does want to point things out. Sadly though, we can't play as Patrick for this world, which is kind of sad. But until when we get to the point until literally towards the end of the game, that we're able to actually select him once again for the sake of the forms of, you know, just trying to grab even more, you know, golden spatulas, as you can tell. So either way, and also every once in a while though, as you can see on screen, that unfortunately we can't take on the forms of the time challenge as Sandy, because it will be kind of broken if you manage to able to utilize with that. Well, if you're trying to able to actually just make things a little bit faster for you, well, unfortunately you can't able to actually use Sandy on time challenges. Only SpongeBob that you can only do time challenges, which is pretty alright in terms of the forms of challenge variety. But either way though, we'll get to that as soon as we're able to do the proper second time challenge. So either way, I guess there's not much else I can really talk about, apart from the fact that there's actually quite a few things I totally forgot to mention ever since enjoying forms within the past few days or so, or in this case, the past few videos of this game. Recently, that Sega has not only just managed to reveal another console mini and stuff like that, but also, get this, we finally got hands on the forms of a Japanese release date for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie after that 3 months of disaster of coronavirus pandemic. But either way though, we finally got the, well, at least for Japan, they finally managed to got the actual, the final release date in a cinema screen. So even then though, specifically the Sonic the Hedgehog movie Japanese version. So even then, I think that particular film will about to be coming out on Japan until likely next week. Well, despite the fact that in the English version that we've already got that film ever since enjoying informs about a couple of days ago, well, to be more specifically, a month ago for the United States version or the American version, and then we've only just got the film for about, I would say about 11 days ago right now, which is kind of unfortunate and especially noticeable how the fact that much like in the forms of in, I would say in Mario Party Island Tour, that usually American version just came out first and then the European version comes out later, or specifically the UK version I should say, but then the Japanese release gets in last, which it seems a little bit of an odd pattern in between those release by release kind of syndrome or something, but either way though, that's just how I can usually think about it. So, yeah, and as you can see, we got ourselves another golden spatula by simply able to take down even what else? Even more robots, as you can see on screen. So, yeah, I'm very happy for a Japanese audience out there, especially noticeable they can finally get a chance to able to see that really good movie. So as a result, I don't know who's going to be voicing as Sonic in the Japanese version, let me know in the comments below, but even then no, I suppose that maybe seems the case. So either way though, yeah, it looks like we can't able to actually access that time challenge as Sandy, so again, only SpongeBob, he's the only one who can able to do that specific task. So, but even then, no, let's get this thing to it. Again, it's only 2 minutes and 1 second, but then again, if you somehow fall off the stage, or even in this case, if you do manage to fail certain spots throughout the forms of this particular slide sections, then, well, assuming if you accidentally touch the checkpoint, then you're gonna have to restart everything else in this time challenge, basically. So even then, no. And the best strategy for this is the fact that if you come towards that particular, well, a long stretch of road in terms of the forms of that particular spiral cases or anything like that, don't take the long route. Instead, we need to take a quicker route, or in this sake of this case, if you really want to make yourselves a little bit too safer for you, well, there's actually that nice little shortcut you can able to actually just to cut through. So thankfully, you can able to actually achieve that particular thing. Although the only thing you need to be very careful of is of course a lot of hazards, like the forms of those particular purple spiky stuff that just seems to stick out, and especially noticeable that my analog control on my PlayStation 2 decides to able to go completely flipped out for a moment. So we'll just try this again. Oh boy, it's gonna be one of those things where it gets like... Well, I don't have as many issues with these kinds of challenges since in Super Mario 64, but for whatever reason, I just had a hard time with it so far. But then again, it's gonna be a lot of emphasis on trial and error situations like so. But this is also this is also rougher. This is the reason why that this uploading schedule is going slightly longer than the rest so far. But it wasn't until whenever we get onto later on throughout the whole entire experience of the game that we might able to actually just to consider this the actual main thing itself. So, but anywho, again, there's nothing else we can talk about apart from this one little thing that we forgot to mention, and that was the fact that recently Sega has managed to able to reveal the Sega Game Gear Micro. Why? I have no idea. Especially noticeable how the fact that most people would seem to be hyped for the Sega Saturn Mini, or even in this case, the Sega Dreamcast Mini, but nope, instead we actually got ourselves the Sega Game Gear Micro, which I honestly don't mind about it, but I'll get into my nitpicking kinds of stuff whenever we get onto the forms of that particular discussion, while at the same time, I was going to be able to concentrate on, you know, just trying to go for this ridiculously challenging time challenge, as you can see right there. But nothing compares to the forms of how it does it on the third time challenge whenever we get onto after we're done with this though. But as long as you get enough good practice, assuming if you're able to really want to know what the track layout looks like, I get the horrible feeling I might actually get ourselves a time over, assuming I'm almost going to be nearly at the finishing line as a result. So, but either way though, we'll see what happens there whenever when the actual things itself was about to be shown up at that particular point. So, is it possible that I can usually go this way? Ah, dang it, looks like I've got 9 seconds left. Can I even make it? Ah, nope. Nope, I didn't make it. Even for about almost 2 seconds, or even in this case, a split second to, well, almost reach that finish line itself. Ah, I was really, really close. I think the best strategy for that is the fact that do not take the actual long routes, because instead, you have to take the shortest routes, assuming if you're able to know the actual track layouts, such as I was going to be able to expect to be doing. So, but either way though, it still doesn't help me for that much. But anyway. Yeah, anyway, with this Sega Game Gear Micro, okay, some sort of like the equivalent to, I would say, Game Boy Micro from Nintendo's part, except the fact that the noticeable difference is being that for I've seen the actual imagery in terms of the forms of the Sega Game Gear Micro, it looks so tiny. And also, not to mention, some of these buttons has been like, well, incredibly bigger than the actual system itself. Like, obviously we still got the start button, and also 1 and 2 buttons, and even a directional pad as a result too. So, that maybe seems the case, as far as the forms of how the fact that what these buttons laid out to be. And also, they're actually going to be including, once again, the headphone jack, that ever since the original Game Gear model, and also the volume slider makes a return, and also the familiar red power switch, which even then though, that I've seen one of those before, but I haven't really get around to all that stuff, probably because of how the fact that I was more used to with playing several of Game Gear titles on the TV screen, specifically in the Sonic the Hedgehog games for that regard. But I'm also able to actually say this right now, I might give those a go. But the only thing is though, it might seems a little bit redundancy if I manage to able to actually purchase for that particular stuff. Because I've already got myself every single of those Sonic games on the Game Gear front, on the game, you know, the Sonic game compilations, like, you know, Mega Collection Plus and Gems Collection on, you know, on the PlayStation 2, so that way I'm able to actually get ourselves more good deeds and stuff like that. So, anyways, finally, we did manage to accomplish that particular challenge. Now let's return back to Bubble Buddy and get that golden spatula.
Congratulations, SpongeBob! You beat my best time! Here's a spatula!
So thank you, Bubble Buddy. I will accept this particular golden spatula. And seems how many of these golden spatulas that we have, it looks like we got ourselves 54 of these golden spatulas now. So, but even then, I was expecting if I was going to be able to tackle through the actual you know, the actual snowman destruction kind of objective, but the only reward you can only get is the fact that I get the feeling you only get yourselves another sock. So, but either way though, I'm also able to come back for that later. So for now, let's go ahead and leave the second section in terms of, you know, Sand Mountain as a result, in this case, Flounder Hill. So, but either way though, we're at least able to have some pretty decent time on that particular section. And of course, that we still need to able to actually, you know, just keep on grinding even more of those shiny objects before we're able to actually just to do even more stuff from here. And I think we should probably go ahead and head over to the third and a final section right here of Sand Mountain, and this actually transports us into, what else? Sand Mountain itself. So even then, I wonder how that particular slide design was going to be like. Ooh, this is going to be accelerating. Especially noticeable how the fact that this will be the third and final time doing these kinds of stuff.
I'm built for speed with this aerodynamic physique, but I'll give you a golden spatula if you can beat my time.
I suppose one thing I forgot to comment on this, is it just me, or does it look like Larry the Lobster has become orange in this game? Which, well, in terms of this entire body, not the back of it for himself, because he's perfectly in red in the forms of in a cartoon show and stuff like that. I don't know, I'm just a little bit too nitpicking with that particular stuff. I hate the word nitpicking right here, but it's just something worth pointing out. But anywho, so now let's go ahead and move on to the third and the final time challenge in terms of the forms of Sand Mountain itself. Now once we're done with that, then we can able to move on to, well, I would say trying to able to actually grab a couple of those Patrick socks if I'm pursuing correctly. Or not, but even then we'll wait and see what happens during at some point on Monday. So, but either way though, we can expect this much. So yeah, as far as what the actual, the Sega Game Gear Micro, in terms of the game software they might actually include, well, seemingly to say, they're only gonna contain like 4 of these. Well, not just 4, but 4 in each, like, 4 consoles colors. Like, for instance, they're gonna be getting ourselves the Black Edition, which is a very standard color for the Sega Game Gear itself. And there's also, they're gonna bring a blue variation, and also they bring the yellow version, and finally the red version. So even then though, each different colored Sega Game Gear Micros were able to contain 4 different games built into it, and I think this is all once again, you know, pre-installed versions of some of those games themselves, which to be expected for most mini consoles out there. Which I was expecting to myself, I was gonna originally try to get myself TurboGrafx 16 Mini or PC, I don't know how you would call it in the European version per se, because I'm more used to saying TurboGrafx 16, because that was the only thing I was pretty much used to at this point. So, anywho, yeah, with all that in mind, oh, I'm almost there to the finishing line. Oh no, 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 it's alright, it's alright, wait! No! Oh, the finish line is right there! Oh, I was so close, and unfortunately, my time challenge has been failed. So, I hate when that happened right there. I really did try to able to actually tilt the right analog stick. No, not the right analog stick. I tilt my analog stick at the right moment, but then chances are my momentum doesn't seem to able to actually get a lot more momentum going. So, that kind of stinks. And talking of which, there goes my another attempt right here. Oh yeah, talking of the final time challenge in terms of the forms of this particular section here, I think you only get like 2 minutes and 21 seconds to beat. So, and I think this is certainly, without doubt to me though, one of the hardest of the 3. So, I'm hoping I can try this again exponentially. But either way though, enough about that. There's also another shortcut you can able to take, by the way, if you really want to able to speed things up. So I believe Fernando, more power to that. And by the way, if you stand on those particular, well, sections, as you can see right there, it will slightly tilt to the side, so you have to be very careful right here, so just in case you don't want to fall off. Especially if you really want to able to accomplish this particular time challenge, as you can see right there, then you need to be super precise on that. So, anyway. Yeah, with the games themselves in the Sega Game Gear Micro they might actually include, let's start with the Forms of the Black version first. The first one is, of course, Sonic the Hedgehog, in this case the 8-bit version of Sonic the Hedgehog. Pretty obvious because that game was like super successful likely for critics and fans alike, even though despite the fact that some of these gimmick stuff, like for instance they are far lacking with loop-de-loops and everything, which I honestly don't mind about it. In fact, it's actually a really cool game to play, even for the forms of in terms of like Sonic the Hedgehog 1 on the 8-bits. It still looks very impressive even to this day. In fact, if you guys know what do I think about the game, because obviously since 2017, now we obviously did the Sonic's Game Gear Marathon on that particular year, so if you guys want to check that out, that particular Let's Play, well, just check it out. So, also another game they'll include in the black model is Puyo Puyo 2, which appears to be almost inspired by the Japanese-only Mega Drive game. But from what I've noticed, something is the fact that it might actually play out exactly like the console version on the Mega Drive version or something. But I might be curious to able to actually try that out, which I'm presuming that's what that thing was supposed to be going for here. So, anyway, so let's try this part again, and hoping I can able to make this. No! Oh, really? That turn just really ticks me off. I know there's actually another way you can able to do it easier I should say, but for whatever reason I just keep on messing things up beyond belief, like including that last darn skinny curve parts. I mean, what's this, Super Monkey Ball all over again? Or maybe it's probably because it was actually up for the challenge or something, so... Oh well, we'll try this again. Hopefully we'll make it happen. Oh yeah, something's worth mentioning too is the fact that, yeah, I might be curious to try that Puyo Puyo 2 game. The next game they are able to include is Outrun, which is more likely it's like a card game or something. And finally is the Royal Stone, which, I don't know what that game is all about. I think it's like an RPG kind of game, like a turn-based battle game or something. And, talking of which actually, is the fact that with the entirety of the Sega Game Gear Micro, it will be releasing in Japan in the 6th of October in 2020 this year, which seems very standard stuff for Japanese owners. I'm not exactly sure what they're gonna do in the Western versions, specifically the English versions in particular, but we'll see what happens in the future time. But another thing that I just want to point things out is the fact that, well, I really don't know if I'm actually curious about the fact that depending on what region you're going to be in, I'm not exactly sure if they're actually going to be containing some different games or something like that, similar to the likes of how it does it in, you know, the NES Mini or the Super Nintendo Mini, and also the same applies to the Sega Mega Drive Mini, and I think that's as far as we can go. So, but even then though, that's all I can really think about in terms of black model Game Gear selections of games. Only 4 of them, which is pretty small in comparison to the forms of how it does it in most console minis out there. But that doesn't end off here, because as I mentioned before, there's some other variations as well. And the next thing we'd like to talk about to you guys is the games they might actually include in the blue variation. So starting with is, of course, another Sonic game that has been listed. And that was the fact that we got ourselves Sonic Chaos, aka Sonic and Tails in Japan. And it's actually a pretty good choice, because as far as I'm aware, despite that game is actually pretty short and easy, but at least I can underappreciate about the fact that Sonic Chaos was actually pretty underrated in my opinion. Especially noticeable how the fact that that particular game does have some cool features, like the ability to play as like Sonic that actually plays out exactly similar to the ones in Sonic CD, as well as the ones in the forms of Tails for the first ever Game Gear playable debut for Miles Tails Prower, so that way you can able to actually just have the ability to fly, and I think that's as far as we can able to think about it. So yeah, very good choice for able to add it in Sonic Chaos into the list. But I really don't know if they're actually going to be including Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Game Gear, even though despite the fact that some people think that Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is considerably much more brutal in comparison to the 16-bit counterpart. And also, I really don't know if they're actually going to be bringing in Sonic Triple Trouble to the Game Gear exclusive, but we'll see what happens here. Especially noticeable with Sonic Drift 1 or Sonic Drift 2. Oh, wait a minute, those games sucks. And heck, even they really will not be including Sonic Labyrinth because that Sonic Labyrinth sucks. Including Sonic Spinball on the Sega Game Gear as well. That particular version, like, specifically the 8-bit version of Sonic Spinball, is like so much more catastrophe. And also the same applies to Tails Sky Patrol, which is, well, an alright game, but not the best. Not the best game that's ever existed. And also, I would have wished if Tails Adventure were able to make it into inclusion. And I really don't know about Sonic Blast or G-Sonic in Japan. But again, we'll see what happens in a future time though. And that's as hard as I can usually think about it in terms of predictions and everything. Another game they might actually include in the blue variation is Gunstar Heroes, which is actually an odd choice. We're able to actually have that in there, even though despite the fact that I still haven't got a chance to play the 16-bit version of Gunstar Heroes for the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive, because I was originally trying to get that on the Nintendo Wii's Virtual Console version, but never got around to it for some reason. But I definitely had some good things about it though, but I digress. And the next game they actually include is Zelfin Tale, which I don't even know about. And finally, Boca Boca Animal, which I don't know how do I think about that particular title. I think it's likely a Japanese-only game or something like that. I'm not 100% certain. We'll see what happens there until when the actual thing itself is about to be releasing itself. So either way though, that's as far as I can usually think about it. So, alright, so let's hopefully try this part again. Hopefully I would able to succeed. Oh no. I'm going to this once again, this little stupid Earth thing, and it's not as easy as it looks because, oh, my analog stick is not accurate enough. Yeah, guys, this will take me a few tries. I'm really sorry. And I can't even, like, well, easily just find myself easy to lose control of myself most of the time. But I digress. Hopefully for the final time, I would able to succeed. I'm really hoping so. So yeah, that's the blue variation of those games they may actually include. And next variant is the yellow one, and I think it only contains the Shining Force trilogy of games. Like for instance, Shining Force Guardian. Install, I can't really pronounce those particular Japanese related names, I do apologize for that. And also Shining Force, the Sword of Hydra, and also we got ourselves Shining Force Guardian Final Conflict, and finally, perhaps even most notably, is Naso Poyo Aronia no Rule, which I think is some sort of like a puzzle game or something like that, combined with RPG elements or something. But then again, I haven't really looked upon that much in terms of, you know, other Game Gear Japanese games or something like that, apart from those Sonic the Hedgehog games, which I always know because I already got those in my Sonic compilation games on the Mega Collection Plus and even Gems Collection. In fact, talking of which actually, is the fact that let me know in the comments below if you'd like to able to let us do the Sonic's Game Gear Marathon once again, except this time around though on live stream, because I don't know if we can able to do some sort of like a charity thing for donation of, you know, the coronavirus pandemic or something like that, in terms of depending on what countries you lived in, or something like that. But either way though, let me know in the comments below. But even that up, because I would certainly love to, but it's just that it's pretty difficult to set up the live stream as for this point in time. But we'll get the hang of it though, we'll get the hang of it soon. And I suppose the last thing we'd like to talk about is the red variation of that particular Game Gear Micro of games they might actually include. First one is of course Revelations, the Demon Slayer, and also we've got ourselves The Last Blade. I think that's what the Japanese, oh wait, it does mentioning on here, it says Megami Tanshi Guardian Last Blade or Last Pupil Special. And the next game they actually include is the GG's Shinobi, in this case the Sega Game Gear's counterpart of Shinobi. And finally, the most iconic puzzle game in the Sega universe is, of course, Columns. So that's pretty much about it. So Super Nintendo, and there's like a grand total of 16 games in total, which is actually a decent, it's actually pretty decent library of them, even though I'm more into the Sonic the Hedgehog stuff, of course. And once again, I keep on messing things up completely for that, specifically for that strict jumps and stuff like that. Oh boy, this will take me a lot of tries. Like, it really did take me a lot of tries on the sake of this mission. Tell you what, whenever we're done with this, apart from the fact that we can able to grab the next golden spatula at some point throughout this episode, then we should probably save the last one until likely for the next video, because if you couldn't tell already, this is by far one of the longest videos that we've ever done for this Let's Play so far. Well, it wasn't until whenever we get on to later on though that I'll talk more about that until during at some point in the future for the majority of 2020 so far. So, but I digress. And another thing they actually decided to include is the fact that, well, I'll explain more about it until later, but of course much like the forms of how it does it in the normal regular Game Gear, is the fact that they might actually include the single mono speaker, very much like the original counterpart, and also they're actually going to be including the headphone jack, as I said before, and also they're able to include the USB charge, which is actually kind of a little bit different compared to the forms of how it does it in the normal Game Gear itself. And finally, they're actually going to be run off as in 2 AAA batteries, which is actually a much more of an improvement over the likes of how it does it for that. Well, you have to take 6 AA batteries in order to able to make your regular Game Gear running, which is insane. Especially noticeable how the fact that we could expect to able to actually like pay a lot of money to able to actually purchase a lot more batteries until you're able to make that thing running. And even not only that, about the fact the matter is though, is the fact that, well, since it's going to be a little bit more of a heavy brick or anything like that, could imagine about the fact they were able to fit in my pocket somewhere. But I digress. And aside from all that stuff though, is the fact that if you think your screen looks a bit too small, luckily Sega themselves managed to able to include the big window accessory, so that way you can able to see the screen better. Speaking of the screen resolution or something, is the fact that they actually measures in with 80mm and 43mm as well as 20mm. So either way though, I just want to classify that with a 1.15 inch display. So even then though, that's as far as I can usually think about it. So there we go. That concludes that particular third and probably the final time challenge in the sake of the forms of sand melting. Good lord. It actually took me a lot of tries to able to actually accomplish this mission, because seriously, that particular skinny curve always gets on my nerves. Oh, god dang it, man. I just can't stand that particular part. But thankfully we did ignore that on this particular attempt right there. So, but even then, I was expecting if I was going to able to jump cut for a multitude of failed attempts for this mission. But good lord, that was like... Jesus Christ, that's way too much. Anyways, let's get that godforsaken golden spatula.
Congratulations, SpongeBob! You beat my best time! Here's a spatula!
Yeah, Larry. I just really need that golden spatula so badly. But regardless of such though, I'm pretty sure we've done with the time-based challenges from now on, up until whenever we get on to the next world in the future. Well, I'm not going to explain things right about now, just because let's just go ahead and say this right now. Let's go ahead and leave Sector 3, and then we should probably just go ahead and probably try to deal with this last golden spatula. So either way though, and first of all, before we do anything else, I think we should probably grab even more shiny objects, as you can see, until specifically for later. And looks like SpongeBob can't able to actually have that particular objective at the moment from Gary. So, but even then, we'll have to able to switch over to, well, SpongeBob to Sandy, which even then, I think I probably should able to actually just, well, before you're able to actually do anything else for this part, I think I should, yeah, I might as well switch over to Sandy. And from here, we need to talk to Gary, and just to see what the actual heads up.
You don't say. Well, there must be a way up there.
So nonetheless though, is the fact that we need to use Sandy for the majority of the entirety of this next mission. And you can either just do a multitude of methods on this part, like for instance, you can either just manage to able to go ahead and grab onto the ledge, or I think there's a possibility you could able to actually just to do this by simply able to hover from here, grab onto this ledge over there, and then basically you could able to actually potentially just not only go over there, which we'll get to that at some point on Monday, but because of that though, we need to most likely try to grab that particular next golden spatula over there. But first of all, let's activate that switch so that way it allows us to actually access to those. What else? So instead you need to able to do a lot of swinging for most of the time. So even then though, that way we need to use those, and then as soon as we're able to actually just to use these to begin with, then we should be able to actually make our way to not only to the actual top portion of this particular entrance building, and as you can see right here, but also another golden spatula. I do apologize if my tongue is actually a little bit twisting in the end there, folks, but I must admit though, I apologize for that. So yeah, there's not much else we can do. I think we need to use SpongeBob for the majority of that particular part over there. But then again, we'll talk more about it whenever we get on to the next video at some point on next Monday. So, but either way though, chances are there's going to be a little bit more of a possibilities of how this is going. We haven't got that much stocks though, I'm afraid. But it's only because we just always get distracted by main missions, as you can tell. So I'm afraid for this point, guys, we got the endings off here. So join me next time on Let's Play SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. That we need to collect one last golden spatula in Sand Mountain. So I'll see you guys on Monday.